Hello, hello, and welcome. My name is Michelle. I am your emotional resilience coach, and I am also a recovering codependent / fawn. I grew up in a narcissistic household, and as such, to survive and to learn to get through it, I learned a lot of traits and ways and dysfunctional patterns that made me a codependent. After a couple of years of living in absolute hell and torment, I needed to find ways to break out of it, to step out of the pain and the suffering and the trauma that cptsd was keeping me stuck in. I love to talk to you about tools and skills and ways and new thoughts that I have learned to develop as I have learned to take my power back and no longer be a victim in my story. If this resonates with you, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and the notifications button. So today what I want to do and talk to my codependents about the feeling of we sometimes don't feel valued or that we are of any worth or that we can contribute in any way to society unless we are fixing. And obviously what we're doing here is we're trying to take the focus off ourselves, we're trying to take the focus off our own pain, and we don't want people to feel pain as we have felt it or to suffer as we have suffered, and we go on this fixing mission. We've got to fix everyone in our lives, we've got to give everybody advice, we've got to tell everybody how things will be better for them if they only did this or if they only did that, and often the advice that we give is really advice that would be useful for ourselves. And sometimes we overstep our boundaries where we say things to people where it's not really our place, or we ask questions that's not really for us to ask, or we say things that are maybe going a little bit too far in saying to people, and instead of allowing them the space to just be in their pain, we say to them basically, well, if you just did this, or if you just did that, or if you just listened, or whatever, and we get stuck into this whirlwind of fixing. And one of the things that I have learned is that often, and I'm sure you have felt it too, people don't need our advice, they don't want our advice, they're not looking for advice. When they share their stories, often what they want, especially initially in the beginning of the throes of this earthquake that is happening in their lives, they just need somebody to make them feel seen, heard, connected with, felt. They want you to just resonate with them and give them that feeling of you're not alone. I have felt that. Now the problem is that often with codependence, our extreme form is dissociation, which means we don't feel our pain, which means we're very numb to a lot of our real core feelings that we need to deal with. And so it's really important for us to learn to sit with ourselves and sit with our pain and honor and grieve our own trauma and heartache, and to see that it doesn't mean anything about us other than that was something we had to experience. When we have worked through it and we get comfortable with feeling our feelings and we get comfortable with no longer pushing down and suppressing and numbing and distracting and all the other things that we do so as not to have to feel, when we start getting used to it and we allow ourselves the grace and the opportunity to grieve and really lean into this moment of I'm grieving everything I've lost. I'm grieving everything that was, everything that should have been, could have been, would have been. When we just allow ourselves to just lean into the experience of grief, we are not going to go into our head. We're not going to intellectualize it. We're not going to try and think our way through it or out of it. We're not going to try and make sense of it. We're just going to accept the feeling. And so what if it doesn't make sense? So what? We want to learn to be with the feeling, because when we do get into these modes of needing to fix others, instead of trying to come at them from an intellectual point of view, we can better strengthen our relationships, we can better be there for people, we can make stronger connections with people when we allow them the space to grieve. Often we don't allow people the space to grieve because we have never allowed ourselves that gift. We've never given ourselves that permission. We kind of go, I don't have time for this, life's too short, I need to keep going, I need to keep plowing on. And things don't really change because we have not learned to properly grieve. There is something in our society where we kind of think it's okay and normal, and we give the thumbs up to grieving the loss or the death of someone in our lives. But when it comes to things that we feel could have been, should have been, would have been better if had been, things that just parts of ourselves that we lose in the process of our growth, parts of ourselves that sometimes we need to let go of. Even if we know that it is a good thing to let go of this because it's not serving us, there is still an element of grief involved because there is this loss, this separation. And to just realize that it is the normal part of the human experience to grieve, and it doesn't make us wrong. It is what's going to make us better and stronger. So often, rage, if you've ever been in your life where you have felt tremendous rage come up for you, that rage is because you've never allowed yourself the opportunity to grieve. You've never given that space to yourself to grieve. So what we want to do is we want to go through the feelings and through the emotions and through the process of getting in touch and connecting with ourselves on a heart level, on that really intense emotional level. And it's going to be practice. If you are used to dissociating, it's going to be practice, and it's going to take time. You don't want to judge yourself. You don't want to fight with yourself. You don't want to criticize yourself. You just want to see, this is what's going on. This is what I'm doing, and be patient with yourself. The more patient with yourself, the more gentle you are with yourself, the more these emotions come to the fore, the more we're able to deal with them and be with them and sit with them and process them on a holistic level, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. We're able to just really allow it to pass through our bodies. When we have been able to do that, and if you want to, please go back to previous videos. I have done a video on what it means to sit with our feelings, to be with our emotions. When you have gotten good at that, and when you are at a place where you are familiar with and comfortable with your feelings, you are able to connect with other human beings on a deeper level. Instead of trying to fix them intellectually and verbally and give them advice and wisdom, you are able to hold that space better for them as you have learned to hold that space for yourself. Being able to hold that space for yourself and hold that space for others allows the connection to happen, allows people to feel seen, heard, and felt. And then the next beautiful step is, if appropriate, you can then give advice. But sometimes it's not always appropriate. Sometimes we need to just be with the situation and allow people the space to do the same. And I know it can be so incredibly difficult because your brain, the codependent brain, is used to going into fix mode. Let's fix this as quick as we possibly can so we can just survive this, so we can get on with our lives. But so often we need to actually feel the emotion, really process that emotion so that we can thrive in our lives. If this resonates with you, please do hit like, subscribe, the notifications button, share with anyone you feel this could change. And if you have any questions, any thoughts, any ideas, I do love to hear from you. Please do put it in the comments or come over to Instagram and say hi to me there. Let me know what it feels like for you to hold space for yourself, and does this enable you to hold space for other people better?